This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
All right, so before we get started, I think we'd be remiss if we did not congratulate the Boston Red Sox on getting to the ALCS. Both Greg and I are big baseball guys. Congratulations to the Red Sox. Greg, did you think there was any chance this team was going to make it this deep?
Past the Yankees, yes. The Rays, I thought it was going to be a long series. I thought it was going to go down to it. But this is a team that before the season, I had to dig out my tweet, but I said something. I think it was on opening day. I was like, I think there's a little something to this team. I was definitely excited about this team. I'm a big Alex Cora fan, so I think that whatever the Patriots, whatever the Red Sox might not have on paper, I think that he can make up for it, sort of similar to Belichick. I hold Alex Cora in that sort of level of head coach. I think that what he's done with the Red Sox in a short time, two trips, World Series title, now ALCS, I think is almost Belichickian. And so I was high on them, not high, but I was expecting more than a lot of people were. And look, they stumbled down the stretch in the regular season, but I still thought that they were a good team. And I think that I think this series with the Rays, Nick, is another example of Moneyball just doesn't work in the postseason. It's designed by computer nerds over 162 games, and it works for you, but it's really hard to win. It's really hard to win much in the postseason because it gets shrunken down, and the smaller the series, the tougher it is. And I think the numbers go out the window. And a guy like Alex Cora, and when you pluck players that just know how to play, are grinders, are just gritty like the Red Sox do, I think it's a good formula for success.
I had them at 85 wins. I thought they'd win 85 games this year. Some people went after me for saying 85. They thought it wasn't going to be that high.
Right.
I was disappointed at the deadline. I didn't think they did enough. I wanted another legitimate arm. I didn't love the Robles and the Davis additions. I liked Schwarber, but I just didn't know where you were going to play him. And I wanted them to go out and get Rizzo to have a legitimate, solidified first baseman. And on Twitter the other night, as soon as they won game 4, my mea culpa to Chaim Bloom. Because, listen, you win, I lose, my man. I mean, you believe that Schwarber was going to be able to be fit in. They stood by Dalbec and ended up working out for them because he played so much better and hit so much better after the trading deadline. Robles outside of the other night when he was throwing up all over the place after making me throw up all over the place. He's been a really good addition the last few weeks. So I stand corrected. That's why Chaim Bloom makes millions of dollars to make these decisions, and I'm a schmuck who talks into a microphone. So, I give him all the credit in the world. I'm obviously a Red Sox fan. It was my number one love. I'm pumped. If you get this far, you might as well win the whole damn thing. That's my adage. So let's see if they can make it through the Houston Astros. The Astros can hit the hell out of the baseball. We'll see what they can do, but just so many heroes. I mean, Garrett Whitlock, a Rule 5 guy, 6 outs.
That was insane the other night.
I mean, come on. 6 outs, 15 pitches. He goes out there with a man on second and no outs, and it's no big deal. And I just love his face. It's like when he's out there on the mound, it's like he's just kind of, indifferent to the whole thing, and then his absolute nails. I love it. It's like when Schwarber stands up at the dish like he's a beer softball league guy. It's kind of with the bat dangling with his belly out, and then boom, all of a sudden could turn on a 97 and rip it. I mean, it's a fun team to watch. And Alex Cora, not the biggest fan of him as far as X's and O's at times, but there's absolutely no denying that guy's got some juju. He's got some mojo. He knows how to get the best out of every single guy on his roster, and he does it. That's what he does. All right, let's get into the football. Greg, we're going to talk about this Houston Texans game. It was awful in the first half. It was better in the second half. I want to start with 3 things that you feel better or at least good about.
Yeah, so let's just start with the passing offense in general, Nick. I did feel, well, actually, let's make number 1 just the offense in general, because I think that their performance has been sort of undersold. I think that they were They were efficient. It wasn't perfect, and we know this, and we know the deal with the offensive line going in, and we'll get to those guys. But I mean, you're talking about an offense, and they are going against the Texans. I understand. Okay, and I don't just look at who they're playing and in the bottom line production. I look at other things like basically, are they executing? Are they executing get better? Because when things don't work in football, it's because the players are not executing. It's, people love to talk about play calling and this and that, but they're really, are they blocking the guy in front of them? Are they running the right route? Are they catching the ball? Is the quarterback making the right decision? So, look, the Patriots, get the ball after the defense can never get off the field in the first quarter. They go 10 plays for a touchdown. The next drive, they go 8 plays, and Damian Harris fumbles on. Look, I thought it was a crappy call. I mean, I don't know. Even on the all 22, it's not clear where he fumbles. To me, I don't know how you overrule the call on the field, but I'm not one to complain about officiating calls. Before halftime, they do go 9 plays, 42 yards, get in position for a field goal. Jacoby Myers drops that pass.
Yeah.
That there was one defender there. I doubt that he scores, but I do think he gets inside, say, the 15-yard line at least. And now you're talking about maybe they have a chance. There's plenty of time left. So I think there was like about 50 seconds left when that pass happened. So now you're talking about an opportunity to put up another touchdown. They started horrible in the second half. There were between 2 drives and Mac Jones's interception, which we'll get to. There was just terrible execution, but like 5 straight plays, and they still have those stretches, which is disappointing. And also, let's see. Oh, and the final drive where they run out the clock basically. They did have a touchdown to beginning of the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And then they had the Ramondre Stevenson touchdown run called back because of illegal motion, which was just stupid. And David Culley should have accepted the penalty. He should have just said, "All right, they're scoring, or else they're going to run out the clock." I don't know. He had a perfect opportunity to do that. And so you're talking about the Patriots could have scored in the 30s in this game. And even if it's against the Texans, I think that's progress and shows you that it's coming along.
Offensive line is the first thing
Yeah.
I thought of when looking at this when you sent it to me. We talked about it last week. I mean, I thought this game would be much closer than people gave it credit for. As soon as I saw on Saturday that, yes, the Patriots would be 4 out of 5 offensive linemen out, I said, oh boy, this is going to be some heavy lifting. I thought it was a great job by the O-line, and I thought part of the McDaniels thing, and I'll get into McDaniels a little bit later because I thought that there were a few things that really, really fell short as far as what he's doing play calling wise. But we also have to give McDaniels credit for the big picture game plan and making sure that he did not expose this offensive line. And so I thought the O-line and McDaniels understanding what he was given on Sunday, Mac Jones understanding that, hey, listen, you got to get rid of the football quickly today because you don't have the guys up front. I thought all of that put together, just the offensive line performance was much better than I anticipated.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with you, and I kind of want to go through that a little bit more in depth in a little bit. But the number 2 thing for me that I feel better about with the team after this was the passing offense in general. I thought that there was a much better rhythm to it, and it really took home. And it was an innocuous play where it was middle of the second quarter. There was 10:30 left. They faced a 3rd and 2. This is on the drive where they go down and Harris fumbles on the goal line. 3rd and 2, Mac Jones short middle to Jacoby Myers for 17 yards. It was the pass that was a little bit high to Jacoby Myers. He brings it down, goes to the turf. So the pass was a little bit high. It wasn't the most accurate thing. But what I really liked on that play, watching it on the coach's film, was there was a really good rhythm to how Mac got back to his drop, the route that the receivers ran, not just Jacoby Myers, the blocking, Like it was just, it looked better, Nick. And I don't know how much people, know about passing offense and things like that. But in general, the way I like to think of it is like, if a well schemed, a well timed, a well oiled passing machine is like, it's like an orchestra. It's like an orchestra playing like a beautiful piece of music. Everybody's in tune, everybody's on time, everybody's, just in lockstep. You can have the greatest instrument players in the world, and if they're not on time, if they're not reading the play sheet right or the music sheet right, like, it doesn't work. It sounds like crap. And so the Patriots, for the first 4.5 games this season, their passing offense, they would have some nice sections, but for the large part, they sounded like crap as far as an orchestra. This is a game where there were times where they really started to make a lot better music, including, Hunter Henry and what he was able to do with Mac Jones. So I thought the rhythm of the offense was better, and that's a good sign for this team. The
Yeah,
passing
McDaniels told the media, I think it was yesterday, he came out and he said, "Look, we're figuring out what we can do best, and we have a better
offense.
idea at what we can do better than some other things, and we're gonna lean on some of those things more moving forward." And I think that goes hand in hand with what you just said. My second thing that I felt better or good about was, you just brought him up, Hunter Henry. And I thought
Yeah.
this was obviously his best game. The touchdown route that he ran, the fact that he and Mac are on the same page, he showed up, and he showed up big. And if you get that from Henry, and eventually, slowly but surely, Jonnu Smith, which I want to get into a little bit later, but I thought Henry was really, really good. And that's the kind of game that you see, you go, okay, that's why we paid that guy the money. He paid dividends on Sunday for the Pats. Your third and final one, Greg.
I'm going to steal from, 3 up, 3 down later, and I'm going to go with, just to go to the other side of the ball, I'm going to go with Dante Hightower. He looked like Dante Hightower in this game. Was it perfect all the time? No. But it was pretty damn good. And I don't know what the difference was, Nick. I don't know if his groin or whatever is feeling better. I don't know if he was maybe juiced a little bit by the Jamie Collins acquisition, thinking that, maybe I'm being put out the pasture here. Maybe I'm getting replaced. Because that was my first thought when they got Collins. I was like, Hightower's not moving well. This might be for Collins. Then again, Kyle Van Noy's not moving well. So right now it's going to be for Kyle Van Noy.
Who the hell
But
is moving well out there?
I know, but I thought that what was great to see was Dante Hightower was taking on blockers physically in the middle of the line, where the normal Dante Hightower sledgehammer shoulder, where he just levels it into him and stuns these big mooses in the middle, and then he goes and makes a tackle. And he also had a little bit of a burst going after ball carriers. So it was surprising. It was a sea change from where he was the first 4 games. And to me, that's a good sign for the Patriots. I'll be interested to see how he looks this week against a much faster Cowboys team, much more challenging offense. But at least for 1 week, I feel better about Dante Hightower.
It was a tough weekend for kickers. I'll give Nick Folk some love because he made the kicks mostly, and he also had a Maverick and Goose reference in his post-game press conference. So he's my third guy. All right, let's talk about 3 things that we feel worse or at least the same about. Greg, you started.
Let's just say the secondary in general. I
Yep,
mean,
that's my
yeah, there are various pieces of it that go into that. I thought, first of all, was it a touchdown they scored? It was hard to remember because there were so many like broken plays in the secondary. But the one on the sideline where, look, J.C. Jackson was in perfect position. That was a lucky play. I mean, I don't want to call it like the Julio Jones play where it's like, how can you play better defense? Because that was actually talent and Matt Ryan dropping the ball there and Julio catching it before he went out of bounds. This was just Davis Mills trying to throw a rocket where only his guy could maybe get it, and this guy snagged it. J.C. Jackson missed it, but Devin McCourty over pursued, and he had a bunch of plays like that in that game. But in general, J.C. Jackson wasn't great in that game. He had a defensive pass interference. He had a a stupid personal foul penalty at the end of the game, which was just stupid. He gave up another slant, and we could put that into this category is like, obviously the scouting report is out on the Patriots because everybody and their mother is throwing slants on the Patriots on 3rd and 4th and short
Oh,
to
God.
convert.
It's killing me.
But what was interesting, Nick, and I just remembered this was, and maybe this is a larger topic for later, but Juwan Williams got benched in this game after that flea flicker for Miles Bryant. So remember what we talked about earlier in the year? I think it was the Dolphins game where I complained about how do you get down when they're playing the Dolphins and it's coming down to it, and the Dolphins only have 2 receivers on the field. They have 2 tight ends, a running back, whatever. And I'm like, how are the cornerbacks, J.C. Jackson and Jalen Mills? How is Jonathan Jones not your second best corner in that spot? And guess what happened? After that flea flicker, Jonathan Jones now became the number 2 cornerback.
Thank God.
And Miles Bryant was number 3, and he took over the slot for Jones. And look, I think it helped a little bit. So I think they hit on something there. But the secondary in general was just not good. You could put Kyle Duggar in there too, because he wasn't good in this game either.
Trash across the board for the most part. And I'll say this too about the 4th and short conversion on the slant. I tweeted it at the time. You don't have to be a football rocket scientist. Like, outside leverage, you're playing off the guy. You're not on the line of scrimmage. It's like a 4th and 2 or whatever it is. That's an easy pitch and catch for quarterback receiver. And I'm at least happy or content that the second time around, they played it much better. The second time around on a conversion attempt, again, it was short yardage. They had, I think it was Jackson up at the line of scrimmage. He was playing a little bit more physical. He didn't allow the receiver inside, and that was much, much better. It was contested. It was deflected away. It was an incomplete pass. So at least they learned from the mistake early in the game and corrected it later in the game, but there's still no excuse. Week 5 to have that kind of approach defensively is just awful. I would say ball security is my second thing, just because, again, you've got the fumble. I understand. I tend to agree with you. It was a really tough angle. Don't know how they overturned it. NFL officiating sucks. Maybe that's why. But, the fumble near the goal line, the Mac Jones pick, just ball security, mistakes by this team and by this offense. You can't have it. This defense hasn't been as good as we expected it to be. The offensive line hasn't been as good as we expected it to be. You can't give the football away. In week 1, you lost the game because of Harris's fumble. You could argue you could have possibly beaten Tampa if J.J. Taylor doesn't fumble the football. In this past weekend, you almost lost because of the fumble. Hold on to the damn ball. Just hold on to the ball. Ball security is driving me nuts.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that I was talking to somebody around the Patriots the other day, and I'll have my number 2 as ball security as well, because it's killing this team, Nick. You're absolutely right. Every game there's issues with it, and it's killing this team, and it hasn't been a problem in the past. And some of these guys, you worry about their mental toughness. That's one thing that was always tried and true about this Patriots team, is that you could never ever deny their mental toughness up and down the roster. And now you got to start to question that a little bit. But I was talking to somebody around the Patriots the other day, and we were talking about ball security, and it's even a topic within the team, because I know that they work, at least in the practices that we're allowed to watch in training camp and things like that, they work on ball security every day, and that continues into the regular season from what I hear. And now there's the point where they're like, well, do we try something different? Like, they don't even understand it. They're like, do we try something different? Do we not, in theory, when you're sitting around kicking ideas around, you're going, well, do we not do it for a couple of days to see if that happens, or for a week? Does it improve? Because it can't get any worse at this point. And so it's perplexing even to the team inside. And so I'll move on to my number 3 thing with this team that worries me, and I just had it in my mind, and I just forgot it. So why don't you go while I
All right,
think?
I'll throw Jonnu Smith out there. Not that I'm worried about him, just to kind of feel the same about him. They're not getting him the football enough. They're not being, as creative as I expected them to be early on. They did finally put him in the backfield a few times, but I just feel like they could make him a much bigger part of this game plan. When you're running, kind of like bubble screens to receivers inside the 20, I think you can run that to Jonnu in a little bit more and let him try to take over with his, athleticism and explosiveness. He's just not showing up in the passing game nearly as much as I thought he was going to.
I think they're I agree with you, but I think they're afraid of getting him too involved at this point, and they're not sure where he is mentally. And if you throw it to him, is it going to go off his hands and go to the other team? So you worry about, all right, am I gonna throw him a screen, like a middle screen or something like that, where there's more traffic. And so I do think that's part of the deal. I think that
Fair point.
they had him block a ton in this game, and his blocking has not been good either. I had him for 3 run stuffs in this game, and that's a lot for, a tight end who doesn't have to do it all the time. I remember my number 3. My number 3 is Isaiah Wynn. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the offensive line since Felger didn't let me do it yesterday. And this is my podcast, so I get to talk about the offensive line if I want.
Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, Felgy.
Yeah, eat it, Felger. But I think that this offensive line, they did play well. Josh McDaniels did make them look better than they probably are, especially James Ferentz, who had another rough game. But, the guy's smart and he's tough. And I remember Dante Scarnecchia, used to tell me what are you looking for an offensive lineman? And, the top 2 things that he wants is give me a smart guy and give me a tough guy. Everything else I can work with. And James Ferentz is like almost the personification of that. But back to Isaiah Wynn. I think he is a complete enigma within the team that I don't think they're very happy with him. This is a guy who they picked up his 5th-year option next year.
Yep.
I don't think they loved his offseason commitment. I don't think they've loved how he's come into the season and think that was part of it. And I think that some of the developments in the game, whether this Haran or Kajust, who we'll talk about a little bit later, I think that Isaiah Wynn is now on the spot and he needs to pick it up, or else I think the Patriots might try some other options than Isaiah Wynn. So we'll have to monitor that.
It feels like it's about that time. Speaking of the offensive line, Greg, you've been salivating for this moment to have a couple minutes to talk about the O-line and what you think the Patriots might do there. I know you just kind of touched on Isaiah Wynn. Where do you think we're headed for the fat guys up front?
Yeah, well, Wynn needs to get his butt in gear. That's number 1, because I think the Patriots are running out of patience with the offensive line. I think that the Patriots, the offensive line got off to a slow start, and so I asked around the Patriots to find out, like, what's the deal? Like, is it the coaching? Is it Brasillo? Was Cole Popovich the magic sauce last year, and he's not back on the coaching staff? And everyone that I talked to said it's not the coaching. They all put it on the players. They questioned some of the offseason work that some of the players have put in and think that they got themselves into this mess and they're going to have to get themselves out of it or else they're not going to be playing. And so I think the number 1 most disappointing, and this goes for, so let's go with the starting unit. You have, Trent Brown at right tackle just hasn't been healthy. I don't think anybody is questioning him on that, but they are counting on him to come back and be a big presence on this team.
Yeah, they obviously didn't think that he was going to be out for as long as he has been, because they could have put him on IR to begin with. They waited, and now he's on IR. So it's like, this seems like it's an injury where they thought they had it figured out. They thought it was more mild than it really is.
Yeah, I thought that from what I understand, he was close against for Tampa. He was close to playing that week, but they said, he wasn't quite ready. Let's wait a week. And then suddenly he doesn't do anything in practice and he's ruled out for the game, and then he's put on IR. So he obviously had a setback, but they are counting on him to come back and be a force, especially in the running game. Shaq Mason at right guard has slid back. 2 years ago, he had a poor season. Last year, he had a good season. This year, he's sort of middling, and that's not good enough. Andrews, Andrews started off the season really strong. He has been slumping. I don't know the reason for that. Owenu, we've already seen him benched in favor of Ted Karras, and then Isaiah Wynn, we talked about. He's probably been the biggest disappointment on the line so far this year. So that being said, we looked at the revamp. There was a revamped offensive line this week. There was Haran from the left, Karras, left guard, Andrews, James Ferentz, and Yadni Kajust in his first real live game action after suffering through injuries. And it was better. It wasn't perfect. I mean, I think Ferentz was Ferentz at left guard. But anyways, Ferentz struggled. He just does. He's not that good, but he's a good guy to have in a pinch, and that's what they had the other day. Kajust he had some rookie errors, Nick, but I got to tell you, watching him on film, as far as the talent, it's pretty impressive. I mean, he has vast potential. If he stays on the field, stays on the practice field, is able to get the reps. I mean, look, I don't think he's going to be an all-pro this season or a Pro Bowler. I don't even know if he's going to start for this team this year, but he has potential to be a starter, I think, at left or right tackle sometime soon if he keeps developing. And his feet were unbelievable. You can make the argument that he's one of the most athletic tackles that they've had in recent years. I think that Nate Solder was a pretty good athlete. I think that Kajust has better feet than than Solder did. Solder's a little bit more powerful. But when I see Kajust out there, I see Michael Orr from the Ravens. I mean, that's what he looks like to me. And Michael Orr was a Pro Bowl level right tackle. I think that Ted Karras did a lot for himself in this game. He even cooked up a couple pancakes. I love it. Syrup on my pancakes in the morning. Steady Teddy was really good in this game, and that he's tough as hell. Not the most athletic guy, but I think he put himself in a mix. So I think with those two guys, and I think Haran did well in this game. He did much better for him. So maybe he's a better left than he is a right. Yeah. I don't know.
I was going to ask you.
I think that those guys, Kajust, Karras, and Haran, have now put some of the starters on notice. And, and you're talking about Wynn, you're talking about Owenu, that if they don't get their butts in gear, if they don't raise up a level and play where they're supposed to be playing, then they're going to be put on the bench because the Patriots have other options now.
All right, there's one thing I wanted to ask you about, actually two things quickly. They kind of go hand in hand. First of all, your thoughts on Josh McDaniels' play calling in the red zone and his play calling after the punt debacle by Houston. I still don't know what the hell that was about. But McDaniels, I thought, it's time to give Mac the keys in the red zone. It's time to, allow your quarterback to do more. The 3 straight screen passes was absurd. There's just some of these calls, running on 1st and 2nd down and getting stuck in 3rd and long, and then running a simple play on 3rd down that's not going to get you the first. I mean, there's some of these things. Again, big picture, I think McDaniels put this team and this offense in a position to succeed on Sunday. I just have issues with that red zone area, Greg, and some of these sudden changes of possession, the way he handles those.
Yeah, watching the game back, I didn't have a huge problem with a lot of play calls, but that one possession, the 3 straight screens in the red zone.
Yep.
It's unexplainable to me. And watching it on film back, I think that if I had to guess, I think that the first one was called. I think that Mac Jones checked into the second one. Whether he was supposed to or not, I don't know. And the third one was, we're in 3rd and long. I don't want James Ferentz to blow a block and all of a sudden we have a sack or intentional grounding penalty and we're out of field goal range. So I understand that. I mean, for the most part, yeah, I think the play calling was better considering in general what was going on in that team. Again, I've never seen 3 straight screen passes called in the red zone ever in the NFL. So I vehemently disagree with that, and I hated that. But I thought overall it was pretty good, and I think that if they cashed in, or they get if Harris doesn't fumble, if the Ramondre Stevenson touchdown stands, all of a sudden I think you're looking at a situation where they're almost like 4 or 5 in the red zone, and it's much better. And so I thought there was a little bit of progress, like the offense in general, Nick, as far as the play calling went. But it wasn't. Everybody can be better, I guess, would be my point on the offense.
Give me a Mac minute. We haven't talked a lot about Mac Jones,
Yeah.
but give me a Mac minute.
I thought Mac was pretty good in this game. I think that some of his near interceptions were the fault of the receivers not exactly running routes right, or them not seeing it the same way, including his interception, which I didn't love. But watching it back and forth a bunch of times, I think that Nelson Aguilar didn't run that route right. I think that Nelson went up and then broke to the outside. And I think the way Mac threw it, and again, it could have been inaccurate, but the way he threw it was he read it as Nelson Aguilar is supposed to go up and come straight back towards Mac to the ball.
All
And
right.
I think if he does that, then it's okay. I do think that Mac Jones, he's starting to get into a little bit of habit, which I don't love, Nick, of somebody's barreling in towards him and he's just trying to get rid of the ball and throws it in the traffic. I don't like that. Those are rookie throws. He needs to go beyond that. I think that sometimes Mac Jones tries to complete too many balls where, sometimes he would be better off just throwing the ball out of bounds or throwing it in the turf before wide receiver and just, so there maybe isn't a tip pass. I think that, look, he's completing like 75% of his passes. He could stand 2 or 3 incompletions more a game where he's just move on to the next down. It didn't work for anybody. The receiver's running the wrong route, whatever. Just throw it in the dirt, move on. I thought his Hunter Henry throw to the corner of the end zone was a spectacular play by Hunter Henry and Mac Jones.
A dime.
Yeah, they both on that play, they both had to read the cornerback, and it was a last-minute decision, and that's why Mac didn't have a ton of heat on it. He basically had to see Hunter Henry all of a sudden out-leverage the cornerback to the sideline, and then he just had to get rid of it because if he held on to it, it wouldn't have been completed. It would have been out of bounds. The teardrop throw was the right throw. You couldn't really throw it with a howitzer there. I don't know if it's completed, so I thought that was great. But I thought Mac was pretty good in this game. There's about 2 or 3 plays each game where you just want them to make better decisions. But that's right in the wheelhouse of a rookie quarterback in this 5th game. And
Right.
so I'm completely good where he's at, and so are the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's fine. I think he's arguably the most consistent player on this football team, along with maybe a couple of other guys like Judon. I think he's been steady, given his situation, given the circumstances. I don't think there's much to bitch about with Mac Jones, frankly. I think he's been by far the best rookie quarterback in the league. And yes, that has some to do with the circumstances surrounding him, but I think overall he's been good. All right, lightning round type of 3 up, 3 down from you, Greg. Let's start with 3 up. Your first guy you want to mention?
Matthew Judon. And I thought he was great in this game. He's the only playmaker up front. I think that, and I'll just go through it. Ted Karras was my number 2. I thought he was great. Had a couple of pancakes. Love to see that.
Steady Teddy.
And steady Teddy. And number 3, I went with Hightower. Like for the reasons we talked about earlier, I think that he looked like his old self. Hopefully, this is a sign of things to come. I do worry a little bit about him being exposed against the Cowboys with all that speed and all those weapons. And if he's going to be on the field, that could be an issue. But for this week, I'm good with Dante Hightower.
I had Judah on the O-line. And again, Hunter Henry, I talked about him earlier. You're 3 down.
Devin McCourty was number 1. Completely out of characteristic for him. You're hoping that this was just a really bad day at the office, which everybody has. Instead of, the proverbial Matt Kellerman cliff, Memorial Cliff. You hope it's not that. So McCourty had a rough one.
Yeah,
Oh,
McCourty.
I'll keep going.
Yeah.
James Ferentz, he is who he is. He's not very good. And Kyle Duggar is just, he had a rough game. I had him for 5 minus plays in this game. A third down pass coverage. He gave up a touchdown. He didn't play two screens really well. He's just, you could just tell he's thinking too much, and you just want to get Kyle Duggar to the point because his skills are just unbelievable, that he gets to the point where he just is able to play fast and recognizes routes and busts on them and breaks them up. But right now, he's just still not there.
Yeah. Overthinking a little bit. One more guy I'd throw in there is Joan Williams was terrible.
Yep.
Let's get to the BostonSportsJournal.com member question of the day. $39.99 for their annual plan. Top-notch analysis of all the Boston pro sports. You're a Pats junkie, and if you're listening to this, of course you are. You get a ton of video analysis from Bedard on the coach's film and direct access to him in weekly chats. Again, it's $39.99, BostonSportsJournal.com. Member question of the day, Greg.
So this one's from Mike JM CPA. I think this is one of my high school buddies' dad's questions, and he asked, Greg, regarding your story on Coach Bill Belichick, and he's referencing my column from Sunday about how I think the Patriots got into this roster mess because they stopped having succession plans at certain positions and just kept retaining their older, slower, more expensive guys. And whether, just look at slot receiver, for example, or having to bring back James White, where, you've had guys like Shane Vereen before, where it's like, all right, Shane Vereen's done, his contract's up, now James White is up. That sort of thing at multiple spots, and you worry about Devin McCourty and Dante Hightower, them not having succession plans there now, which, could be the reason why they're old and slow on defense. But anyways, he says, regarding that column, Coach Belichick only wanting to coach people he likes. And I said that could be one of the reasons. It sort of coincides when we heard from Urban Meyer that Bill Belichick said, at this point in my coaching career, I only want to coach guys that I like.
Yep.
He says, do you think the retirements of Ernie and Scarnecchia may have had an influence on the change in his outlook, which you hypothesized? I do not. I don't think that the two are related. I think that, Ernie just retired last year.
Yeah.
And Scar, they've gone through this before. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think while, they miss that institutional knowledge, for sure they do. I don't think that's the issue. I just think that, and I don't know the reason why. I do think that Bill has gotten a little bit more, comfortable in his later years as a coach. He's no longer the hard ass that he, used to be. He doesn't kill everybody on contracts, and he's just different. Practices aren't the same. He's just different. But I think that's the reason for it. That Bill just at this point in his career, he doesn't want to go through a lot of the headaches. He just wants to be able to concentrate on coaching his team and not having to deal with difficult personalities or, guys that can't be coached up. He just wants to coach guys that take his coaching and are tough and are going to execute what they're told. And for the most part, that's really worked well for the Patriots, and that might work well for them very soon. And I think it will in the second half of the season. But the past couple of years, past about, almost 2 full seasons, it hasn't worked very well.
Well, hopefully it works for him this Sunday. Big challenge coming up. Dallas comes to town. Dallas is, 4-1. They are by far the best team in the NFC East. I think that says more about the division than the team. That division sucks, but they are the best team in that division. I was talking to Keyshawn Johnson this week on my show, and, Key thinks that they are the best team in the NFC. Take that for what it's worth. I would not go that far just yet, but he thinks that they're really, really good. And it's going to be a 4:25 kick, one of those, prime time kind of Sunday games. Big time challenge. Dak Prescott and company, a lot of offense. That offensive line is playing great for Dallas. So a lot of challenges coming up on Sunday. Greg and I will break all of that down on the next Greg Bedard podcast with Nick Cattles.